The Midnight Pearl reached the border exactly on time. Over the speakers, you hear the captain say, "I am happy to inform everybody we have successfully reached human territory. As of 1 minute past, we have crossed the border. In order to emphasize these points made previously at breakfast, no non-terrestrials have authority here. I say again, no non-terrestrials to human territory have authority here." Guon and Slagon actually stop cold and look at their mother. They look with relief that they finally got to a safe zone. They had made it this far, and they were grateful for it. And now that they are this far, they only have to worry that there might be another human that could be an issue. However, this is where Bichon actually turned to her daughters, gave them the same side-eye that the captain does when he simply says, "Don't worry about it." Less than a day later, they come out of FTL. Coming out of FTL was actually so smooth it was near unnoticeable by anyone. If they didn't know they were coming out, they might think, oh, was there some sort of slight stutter? But that was it. They arrived inside a solar system, and Bichon checks the star map. She realizes, as far as territories are concerned, this is one of 5 solar systems, also known as the Pentagon Cluster. It's the remnants of an old republic that was almost lost a century ago when the Earth was attacked, when they had to abandon. Originally, this was the most powerful one on the planet at the time, but they had to abandon Earth just to let it heal. The captain contracts the trade unions, tries to get docking, and gets ready for goods transfer. He almost instantly received coordinates for the Saratoga space station, and they move at sublight speed towards the station. However, this does take a while, and more than once, the captain is asked at different times by different goers, why so slow? He simply says, you can't go faster than port speed. When asked why, he simply says, they revoke your flight status permanently. As they get closer, the goers notice how the humans are very professional, strictly so, over the comms. There is no jabber, there's no pleasantries except for welcome back and any issues are the only ones they hear. However, when they hear any issues, the captain is quick to hit the comms and say, I need to submit an immediate report to the station's security. Label it urgent. Confirmed, send report. With just a few buttons, he sends everything they had for the pirate contact. The transmission in the logs reads confirmed, yet it still needs to be read by the security team. At least they have everything. No exceptions, every minute detail. This covers everything from the broadcast he had from the encounter of the Croatan hit team, along with everything inside the ship. Bichon also noticed something else that went out. This was not the security, this was request forms, as though they were trying to restock certain things. The majority of these were products for replacements for the ammo loss used during the engagement. But there were a few things that were just strange. A few things she didn't understand what they were. But as she went to actually ask what they were, it seemed as though the captain and everybody else was too busy taking care of docking. Upon reaching the station, all the goers were just amazed as they looked out from the observation deck. They looked at the station. It's gigantic and so much commerce. Ships are ranging from the size of personal transports, hardly enough space to support one inhabitant, to cargo freighters that are even larger than the Midnight Pearl. Large enough that the Midnight Pearl could actually settle inside them and still have room to move. Then they saw something that made them all shiver just a little bit, and that was the warships. Warships that didn't even attempt to hide firepower. These were not a Q ship, as the captain had put it. No, these were ready for war at a moment's notice. Massive cannons were protruding out all sides, cannons large enough that they would be able to penetrate the largest ship without even a second thought. The engines did not glow, but they seemed to allow the ship to glide through space as though it was a giant whale in the water, just moving gracefully. And as it went past, they saw how the armor glistened when it caught the light. They asked why, and they were told it was designed to refract and reflect energy weapons. This was one thing that all other species wanted to know how the humans did this because they know it worked. It was able to reflect at least 20 to 28% at minimum of energy blasts and refract energy blast at almost 100% efficiency. These were also ranging in size. Some ships so small that they could actually fit down the barrel of a few of these large dreadnoughts. And of course, there was the one dreadnought class that seemed to be overwatching everything from the closest planet to the station all the way past the Saratoga, as though sitting there, waiting, daring any species to come and find out what they can do. When Bichon and the others began to ask a bunch of questions on why the humans would need so much firepower, they realized the answer had already been given. However, the captain did talk. He said, after Earth was struck, human goods reached an absolute premium, realizing that there was going to be no more of them being produced for a while. However, selling all this helped us rebuild, and rebuild quickly. You can see, look at this station. This was one of the first ones. It's only been getting bigger over time and upgraded constantly. And because of this, and because we could, as you've seen in this ship, we can create more human goods to sell, and since they're of a premium price, humanity became wealthy. And in order to defend from other species who simply want to come and take all that we have been working for, we adopted a simple solution, making the forced acquisition of human goods far too expensive an endeavor. Any business person or business being would immediately perform a cost-benefit analysis of coming to try and take anything from this station or anything from these ships around here, and realizing, well, they're going to lose a hell of a lot more than what they gained, which would mean they would gain nothing and they would lose everything. Bichon kind of looked sly and said, surely they must leave with something. The captain turned, looked at her straight in the eyes and said, no, they wouldn't. And don't call me Shirley. She looked confused at that last part as Robert piped up saying, this is something that is strictly human, so allow me to explain. Say the pirates wanted to take this ship right here, our ship, the one we're on, as they tried before. First things first, with any contact, you want to find out their intentions. All right? A lot of times it's peaceful. Sometimes they are just passing the same direction. It's not a big deal. However, if their intentions are violent, well, we move on to the second phase. And the second phase would be we tell them that's a very, very bad idea. And if they keep going, then we move on to third, where we show them we mean business. And of course, that's the deployment of the weapons. They can see that. Anybody could see that. The basic sensors could see that. And there's no hiding any of it once they're actually deployed. They can't see it now that they're actually stowed. But once they see that, a lot of times they'll just pull away. But if they don't, well, it comes down to the fourth, and, well, then we fight. And finally, if, and I mean that is a big, big if for some way, shape, or form they're able to disable or board this ship, and it comes down to the last human, and they're going to take the ship, and they're going to take everybody on board, well, we're going to give them the last great act of human defiance. Slagon just turns and goes, what might that be? Robert stands up straight and says, we simply scuttle the ship. Since it's rare at best to survive capture from pirates anyway, And even if you did, the torment they would put you through would be so, we'll say, poor, that you're going to wish that they would just shot you before and got it over with quick. As a last act of defiance, as we like to call spite, we will take them to the other side of the veil with us. And when doing so, we destroy the goods that they want so bad, we destroy the ship they want so bad, and most likely take out all them and their ship and their associates as well, because this thing would turn into a giant claymore mine in space. That's when they all kind of turn sideways, not realizing what a claymore is. But Gulon comes in and says, "You seem far too calm, almost gleeful, at the idea of self-destruction." Ava jumps in and says, "It has only happened a few times, but that is only because the pirates get paid premium rates, along with getting premium salvage rates, just to attempt to capture a human vessel." Gulon again asks, "Is that why the pirates were so insistent?" The captain spun around and said, "Yeah, and I thought insurance salesmen were pushy." The humans all paused for a second and then laughed, a laugh that seemed to break the tension as the docking sequence continued. The docking sequence was surprisingly soft. The ship sitting there, waiting for the clamps to attach themselves. Once they did, it very, very slowly pulled the ship in right next to the station. Now, for several minutes, all the seals are checked, double and triple checked. By the time everything's ready to go, all the crew is geared up as the pressure's equalized. The goers are told if they want to, they can watch, but they have to stay out of the way, stay on the catwalks. Don't stick your hand out, don't point, don't do nothing. Because there's far too many moving pieces, and there's far too high a chance of them getting hurt. Maybe one of the crates would shift. Maybe they'd fall onto the belt and get squished between a couple. Maybe one of the cranes would crack them beside the cranium. It just wasn't worth it. They just need to watch, and that's exactly what they did. They watched the dance of machines and exosuits as they grabbed the exact crates they needed, moved them out, and they just rolled their way out very quick and in a hurry. They looked outside of the cargo bay, and they could see the captain with his data pad. He could see him speaking with another suited human that came up as though they seemed to be verifying things, and then another and another. And they thought, wow, this goes extremely smooth. Did they ever have problems? As though on cue, the machine seemed to pause as they seemed to argue outside. The captain, seemingly being very animated with his arms along with the other human. The gestures were foreign to the goers, but they do understand a dispute when they see it. However, less than a minute later, everything began moving again. Watching crates of all sizes and shapes getting unloaded and others loaded back up right behind them, it takes only hours, and they're already ready to depart again. They were amazed at this. They didn't understand. Is this normal? But that question was answered as they went over to the 4 other stations in the Pentagon cluster before taking a quick FTL jump to another human territory. Entering this territory, the humans seem very serious and quiet as they jump in. Normally, there's a few jokes or something, but they're very focused. The girls look and see that this is called a Kerensky cluster. When asked what this is about, they say it's a very old school society. They believe in God, guns, and just a little bit of gold. However, when they looked out from the observation deck, the girls were shocked. They knew there would be warships, but there's many more of them. Not just more, but larger and sleeker warships. They went over towards the station as though they simply waded through each of these ships. Then they performed the same docking procedure, but this time to the station called Salt Lake, as they were just over a planet called Pennsyltucky. The look in the captain's eyes, they could see, was nothing but focus. It seemed as though he didn't want to look at anybody and immediately put his helmet on, but every time he took it off, it was something else. There was something else behind those eyes, too, but they didn't know what it was. They looked over at Robert, and he had deadpan focus, too, but it was easier to see what was there also. There was pain. Pain in his eyes. Ava, only once in front of them, walked up before Robert put his helmet on and whispered, "Are you all right?" Robert just nodded before donning his helmet and then moving into the bay. This is when they offloaded, and another human actually came on board during the dance of all these crates. The girls saw it. A very broad human, not nearly as toned to the body as what they were used to, but he was very big, actually taller than the captain was, wider too. It was strange. The captain actually brought him up to the catwalk, removed his helmet, and introduced him. "Hey, this is Evan. This is my brother-in-law. He's going to join us for a meal." Robert actually ran up and gave Evan a great big hug when he came on board, lifting him up with the exosuit. Once again, made sure that he went through the names of Bichon, Slagon, and Golan just to make sure he understood the names and how they were supposed to be pronounced. Evan looked at them all, trying to keep his eyes focused on their eyes and not letting his eyes focus too much on everything else, which was very exposed. After saying, "Nice to meet you all," he shook their hands, taking very special care not to squeeze too much, as it's well noted that humans are strong compared to other species, and he didn't actually want to break their bones. As they walked to the galley, it seemed as though the girls were in a hurry as they went first. Evan was behind with the captain as he looked them up and down, not fully understanding what he was looking at as he doesn't know the species. He looked at their heads, actually rubbed the hair on his head, and then turned to the captain and said, "So, hemochromatosis?" as he pointed directly at the goers' heads. The captain didn't even look. He said, "No, amphibians." "Oh," Evan said. At dinner, the captain tells Evan about the journey so far, Evan taking special interest in the pirates. Security's a big deal with him, as it's his job to keep this station safe, and he's been doing it for a long time. After the meal, Bichon asks, "What is a brother-in-law anyway? You said that several times. What is a brother-in-law?" But when she says this, all the humans got quiet again. She started to wonder if she had said something wrong, wanting to say anything, but eventually the captain spoke. He said, "I was married, well, officially married, since we never had a ceremony, to his sister. Her name was Bernadette. She was Robert's mother. I met her when I was just starting out with that starter ship that Robert works on. And we were out here for a while saving up, and eventually we purchased this ship. It was a lot smaller back then, but she helped me design it. Hell, she helped me build it, most of it. She even named the damn thing. She gave birth to Robert only a few years before the invasion from the Toe Jam territory. And it was actually right into this territory. They used to border us. And after the Toe Jam were actually pushed right back out of our territory, which took a few years, of course, and she wanted to help everybody. She had family on one of the colony worlds there, and since there wasn't any fighting, she went to help, and she got caught up in it. Evan, realizing that he needs to cut in, jumped in. "We were on the surface of the planet when those motherless bastards used their own form of Operation Meteor. Only about half of us survived the initial strike. I was on the ground when it happened, and eventually we went out looking for survivors, and we found the makeshift bunker she was in with a few others. The strike wasn't directly on the bunker, but it was close enough to do the job. Robert cut in at that point, says, "That's when I saw my first combat, and the only time we were not on time for our deliveries. I was, I think, 6 at the time." The captain immediately jumped in again. "It was not a good day for everybody, or anyone at all. I mean, the toe jams believed that they could get us to a draw by showing what they were willing to do, even at a loss. And they clearly knew nothing about humans. Attack our families or our homes, and they thought we would just back off and forgive them. God forgives, we don't." The room is then silent for a while, and even the androids are paused at that. But that's when Betty actually chimes in and says, "We all miss her." Right behind her was Veronica, says, "She purchased us. She activated us. She gave us names." Betty chimes in again, says, "For androids, that is a massively high amount of respect. Most androids are called by their serial number or just a couple letters or numbers or something like that. But she immediately started treating us like family," Veronica said. Bitchan looks at all of them with their solemn faces and says, "She sounds like a woman I would like to emulate. She sounds strong." In that moment, the captain almost jumps to his feet as he pushes his chair back. He walks over to a cabinet that honestly didn't look like a cabinet, and it even needs his thumbprint to open. After it unlocks, he reaches in and pulls out a very old, very expensive bottle. The androids, understanding the assignment, immediately brought fresh glasses to the table. Without a word, the captain began to pour everybody a glass, no exceptions. Raising his glass, he paused as though he didn't know what to say, and that's when Evan said, "The old army toast." The captain nodded and said, "To Bernadette, a strong woman in body, mind, and definitely spirit. We salute you. We miss you. And may you have only the best on your next assignment." The goers are completely confused about the words of this toast. They don't understand what the meaning is. They understand that every single human, every single android there is thinking deeply about this. But as they notice the humans starting to drink, they realize that sometimes if they have any type of ethyl alcohol, it can be unbelievably painful, unenjoyable. However, when they sipped on it just a little bit, it was amazing. They actually enjoyed this 100-plus-year-old bottle. This, whatever this was, this amber liquid that was inside. They enjoyed it so much so that all three of them just kept sipping a little bit more, a little bit more, and a little bit more until it was all gone. The warmth in their belly started out slow but kept building and building as the delirious effects of the ethyl alcohol slowly climbed up into their brains. It can be said that this is now a math problem. 1 drink plus 25 minutes plus goer equals unable to walk drunk. Each of them was carried back to their room and set with a biomonitor just to make sure that the alcohol would flush out of their system eventually and not put them in any danger. All three of them were completely zonked out as the ship disconnected from the station. Inside the bridge, no words are spoken until they are at least 10 minutes away. Robert chimes in and says, "You know, it was nice to see Uncle Evan again. Though it would have been nice if he could have kept eye contact with our guests, for more than about 2 seconds." The captain, turning and looking at him sideways, "You're one to talk. You haven't kept eye contact with them since they came aboard." They all start to chuckle a little bit, and they needed that laugh as it finally broke the tension inside of the bridge. The captain also said, "Oh, hey, don't forget you two. After this next drop, we need to make sure to get everything ready for it. Don't forget." Hello, everybody. This is Syntax. Thank you for joining me today on part 5 of this ongoing series. Now, before I go, I need to say that today's winner is V.
Are you like a crazy person?
And I also need to send out some gargantuan thank yous to the supporters of this channel, and they are Prozac and Pancakes, Clinton Arendal, Guardian Sage, Steve Uwig, MTF Guard, Erica Gem, Brian Kemp, SS Demon, and Julius Boone. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. Everybody else, I'll see you on the next one. This is Syntax.
Ejecting pilot.